February to March 1979, Sino-Vietnamese border. An unprecedented conflict was staged. The conflict has condensed the tensions between the two countries. Behind the Vietnamese army's aggression against Cambodia and provocations against China, China fights Vietnam for quality inspection and defends its own security. Decisively launched a punitive strike against Vietnam, both sides in this war, at great cost in life and property. In particular, the highly anticipated Battle of the Tri-Hydrogen Cave, Battle of Sankindong, in Sankindong, this warring frontage in the mountains of northern Vietnam. Thousands of Vietnamese troops guard its underground fortress, and our army is responsible for the invasion of 163 things. The desperate resistance of the Vietnamese army. As a result, our army is in a very passive situation. The deadly war of resistance on both sides, after many bloody battles. As a result, our 163rd Division was squeezed into the army and wiped out. And the arrival of reinforcements broke the anxious battle situation. This battle was undoubtedly the most brutal of the war. The most costly scene. Surprisingly, in the official battle report, records of the battle have been erased. The bravery of the entire Sankindong offensive, given sacrifice, returned to zero, the complex considerations and implications behind this approach. It's still memorable. The Sino-Vietnamese War in 1979. It is not limited to the friction between the two countries. It was also related to the global geopolitical landscape at that time. In particular, the deterioration of Sino-Soviet relations. It's inextricably linked. This background adds many dimensions to the warrior, makes him a chapter in history that cannot be ignored. In the 1970s, the two camps of China and the Soviet Union are opposed by ideological opposition. Issues such as territorial disputes have caused waves. The Soviet Union around our country, enhanced military presence, the security of our country. China actively pursues the diversification of its foreign relations, and implement reform and opening up to break the Soviet siege, and strive for beauty in others. Western countries maintain good relations. At the same time, Vietnam chooses to side with the Soviet Union, become a pawn of its regional influence in Southeast Asia. Vietnam sent troops to attack Cambodia in late 1978, destroyed the Khmer Rouge regime in Singapore. Instead, a puppet government was established. People's Republic of Cambodia. This behavior seriously violates the friendship between China and Vietnam. A good deal also threatens our country's rights and security in the region to help the Cambodian people defend themselves against Vietnamese aggression. At the same time, for the reform and opening up of our country, create a peaceful and stable external environment. In this context, our country decided to give Vietnam a punishment, precautionary education, Sino-Vietnamese War. It's rooted in both countries. On top of the conflicting economic interests in shared seas, China and Vietnam and the South China Sea Islands, there is an ongoing territorial dispute. These territories are not only strategically located, and it contains many precious natural resources. The Battle of Shisha in 1974. China has regained some islands previously occupied by Vietnam. The battle is over. Vietnam, after that, all kinds of unfair treatment of Chinese in Vietnam. It pushes the contradiction to a peak. According to some reports, the Chinese who were forced to leave the country at that time, the number of overseas Chinese has reached an astonishing 200,000. Our government? 2 strong warnings were issued to Vietnam, but the results are thin. Finally, December 25th, 1978, Vietnam mobilizes huge troops, launched a stunning all-out offensive against Cambodia. The wind is loud, extremely nervous. January 7th, 1979, marked the Vietnamese army. Captured Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia, disintegrated the reign of the Red High Coals. At the same time established pro-own regime People's Republic of Cambodia. This action not only ignores China and Vietnam, the previous friendship treaty between them, China's security in Southeast Asia, profits pose a clear threat. So the artillery fire on the Sino-Vietnamese border was ignited. China versus Vietnam. South Korea has taken severe economic sanctions. Trade was disrupted. The previous ship projection project was fully withdrawn. The country regards this war as education. Warning of an operation in Vietnam. We are also maintaining border security, and it shows the might of the Chinese army. We have no plans for Vietnamese territory in this battle. I have no intention of shaking the regime. It's the kind of June 1st emperor who beat the Moon Army, so the movement can come and go quickly. Although the Vietnamese side resorted to tunnel warfare and line guerrilla, it did cause us a lot of casualties. But my People's Liberation Army entered like lightning, quickly conquered more than 20 NATO locations. The infrastructure in Vietnam is also under pressure. The lost cause is not a little bit. The Sino-Vietnamese War. It is a local, punitive conflict caused by various factors. The bow and arrow battle in Sanking Dong. In the self-defense counterattack, it can be said to be particularly tragic. It is also a very classic meaning. February 17th, 1979. The Chinese army is seeking, responding to the Cambodian aggression by the Vietnamese team, and the suppression of overseas Chinese. Real fire on northern Vietnam. Launched a limited-scale self-defense counterattack. The Eastern Military Police Regiment must have fired a shot at Lang Shan. February 28th, breaking through the defenses of the 3rd Vietnamese Division in one fell swoop. Then, on March 1st, Liangshan City was occupied. Then I hit a hard stubble, Sanking Dong on the west side of Liangshan. There are literally more than 1,000 monthly troops there. Just hold on and don't surrender. Even took out gas bombs and anti-tank weapons. Come and fight against the People's Liberation Army. Sanking Dong is more than just a good place to escape the heat. It can be called Vietnam's military lair in Liangshan. In order to give the Vietnamese army a ruthless, Xiamo Wei also wants to open Vietnam's eyes. Look how magnificent our arms are. I have ordered Sanking Dong. This fortress must be taken. Sanking Dong Station. It is the top demonstration of our army's tough battle. Tank armored vehicle. Cannon flamethrower. Explosives should be shot when they should be shot. The strong generals of the People's Liberation Army exported those. The entrance is sealed. All kinds of fire coverage bombing. Powerful. Especially when it comes to recovering Dashi Mountain. The Vietnamese anti-aircraft guns and machine guns. I'm not a vegetarian. Fight back to the death. People's Liberation Army soldiers use the mountains and green cover. Find a chance to pay back. In a sudden attack, our soldiers discovered a secret guard for the Vietnamese army. A grenade goes down. The Vietnamese army soon lost its command, and the squads push on. An enemy anti-tank missile position was discovered. That's a new toy from the Soviet Union. Not a small amount of power. Let's deal with it. It's not hard. Smoke bombs confuse them, following the bazooka and recoilless gun. Concentrate your firepower to catch them all. When the PL warriors locked down Sanking Dong Fortress, when closing the door of the enemy in one fell swoop, the Vietnamese fought back desperately. They don't have much choice. Scurrying around like a mouse in the hole, trying to make a bloody path from various tunnels, or divert our firepower. Our soldiers are very calm. Immediately laid down the line of defense, using a flamethrower. Grenades, machine guns, things like that, forcibly put shackles on the Vietnamese counterattack. An encounter down, our brothers discovered. The enemy's tunnel was blown up like crazy. Just blocked the Vietnamese army's sliding door. Then, the People's Liberation Army made a big move. Take the explosives warehouse and blasting tube in your hand. Facing the main entrance of Sanking Dong, there was a terrible bombing. Yu Jun was terrified. I can only obediently drill into the depths of the fortress to hide my skin. And then we had grenades. The shells kept falling. It blew up the entire cave. A lifetime of violence. The hydrogen hole is history. Both sides lost a lot in this battle. About 50 of our soldiers died. More than 200 people were injured. The Moon Army was beaten by the iron fist of our army. Clean removal. Only a little bit of it slipped out the other exit. And surrendered. Completely destroyed Sanking Dong. It has become our army's mountain attack and defense combat skills. And the exhibition of fighting spirit. This is a classic battle. Demonstrates the superb combat skills of the People's Army. And the courage not to be afraid of sacrifice. It also effectively deterred the hard resistance of the Vietnamese army. Battle of Sanking Dong. It deserves to be recorded in a fascinating chapter of mountain warfare. This tough battle. Not only does it demonstrate the high combat capability of the People's Liberation Army, and creative flight, and they showed their humanity. In 3 calls, the U army surrendered, promised to keep them safe. This battle undoubtedly enhanced the fighting spirit of the People's Liberation Army. At the same time, it shocked the will of Li Fang. for the Moon Army. This is a disaster and a major defeat of humiliation. Moon Army guarding Sankingdong Fortress. I consider myself a rock-solid fortress. Can stop the pace of the People's Liberation Army, waiting for reinforcements. They even sent gas bombs. High-end equipment such as anti-tank missiles attempts to counterattack. However, they underestimate the combat effectiveness and wisdom of the People's Liberation Army. I also think too highly of my own defense and willfulness. The Vietnamese army's stubborn dissent. Atrocities against those who persuade them to surrender. Finally trapped in a hole with nowhere to escape. Fire blasting. Hey sound wave. Under the multifaceted attack of the People's Liberation Army, the Vietnamese army was scarred. The battle has collapsed. This battle not only shattered the myth of the Vietnamese army, it also shattered their arrogance. Sankingdong was originally a retreat for Vietnamese central officials. It is also their tactical center in the Liangsha area. The People's Liberation Army rose from the camp. It refers to Sankingdong. Its morale destroyed the fighting spirit of the Vietnamese army. Its victory highlights China's the might and resolve of the army. After the Battle of Sankingdong, Yizhun is in the Liangshan area. The line of defense is obviously down. The People's Liberation Army has firmly established its feet, guarded Liangshan city. Although this tough battle was fought beautifully, but the final report didn't count a single zero. It's actually not that tortuous. When our People's Liberation Army bombed Sankingdong, I don't have time to count how many enemies there are. Cleaning up the battlefield is an afterword. You must know that the structure of Sankingdong is very complicated. Big and small holes are interspersed. Can't see at a glance. So the People's Liberation Army didn't investigate in depth. There's a sea of fire inside. Temperature explosion. The air was smoky. The environment inside is for people. It's not good to stay at all. The People's Liberation Army naturally does not intend to enter rashly. Isn't that looking for abuse? So the People's Liberation Army was out there, sort of swoosh. Swoosh. I didn't go into the cave to explore the magazine. Ultimately, the PLA took care of the Vietnamese army in Sankingdong. That's the #1 priority. Besides, the bombs used by the People's Liberation Army. The amount of shells is not small. The power of detonation is not covered. The whole cave shook 3 times. The Moon King in the cave is 80% gusty. Our People's Liberation Army does not have an accurate enemy rape technique. The few escaped or surrendered prisoners of war of the U Army. I can't tell the number of people in there. Our battle report is to be true and reliable. Implement the principle of consistent honesty. No misreporting. Destroy the enemy numbers. 0 character forming. This hard fight, let our tactical level and fighting spirit all show their skills. Uprooted a symbol of Vietnamese recalcitrance. The collapse of Sankingdong Fortress. It also dispelled the confusion of those people. So, battles are not just fruitful. It also gave the important moment to the back. Face the opponent. Don't be arrogant, don't be blind. Be honest. Polite. That's the hard truth.